As I begin this recording, a friendly reminder to please keep your audio and video disabled. Nothing you put in the chat box will appear in the recording. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Maggie and Charmin, you're welcome to take over.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brooke and Panaga. Thanks so much for being our fearless leaders all these months. It's my pleasure to be here to be leading and welcoming our guest speaker today, Charmin Aschenberger. And I have that right. I'm so sorry. We'll introduce you in just a moment. Charmin Aschenbrenner. Woohoo!
Good job. You got it.
Awesome. I'll be introducing her in just a moment, everyone. But just as a reminder, for this series, welcome to OptimizeU, our fifth in a series for this year. It's been amazing to come and share all of these ideas and inspirations on self-care, how we can evolve to optimize ourselves as we address our universal needs for food, how we move and breathe and nourish our amazing bodies, and then how we look at it through our universal and our unique approach. We're all unique. So yes, we're going to be able to give you the link for all previous sessions. And let me go ahead and welcome our guest speaker to just introduce herself real quickly, and then we'll go into the program. So Charmin, thanks so much for joining in. You're a rock star for bringing all of your goodness, all of your amazing background with food as medicine. So please tell us your background, how you got into nutrition, and what you're here to talk to us about today.
All right. Yes. Charmin Aschenbrenner is my name. I'm a registered dietitian and a certified lifestyle medicine practitioner. I work with the Lifestyle Medicine Institute, which owns and curated the program PIVIO, which you'll be learning a bit more about today in this presentation, the lifestyle intervention program. I'm very passionate about food and lifestyle, and I'm just grateful to be here and talk to you about my favorite subject, food as medicine.
Yay, Charmin. And thank you for being here. I know you're super busy with this amazing new program rolling out around the world. So we honor you. Thank you for your presence, and we'll share your presentation in just a moment. So for now, folks, let's go ahead, and I'm going to share my presentation. So hopefully you can now see. Welcome to Daily Habits to Thrive, OptimizeU. My name is Maggie Gruskin, and I will be your guide as we dive in today to our theme of the month, Food as Medicine. We are eternally grateful for the San Antonio Public Library to be hosting this monthly wellness seminar, an endorsed event by the Mayor's Fitness Council here in the city of San Antonio. So if you've been with us for previous sessions, you've seen our different topics, but for those of you who may not have been with us, here they are. January was a well-being check-in. February, we dove into a heart-centered approach to the idea of married to your life. How committed are we to our mind, body, and spiritual well-being? And then March, with the change in the time for many people around the world, we dove into the science behind sleep and its direct connection to our health and well-being. April's, oh my goodness, this focus was on happiness in motion, how movement, we are made to move, and how the more we move, we activate the healing properties of our body. Every cell is waiting to move and connect with our mind and our cells. So dive into any of the previous sessions, find the recordings in the YouTube channel for the San Antonio Public Library YouTube channel, and Brooke has put it in the chat as well. Today we'll be focusing on food as medicine. And as we always start, taking a moment to see where we're at and where we're going. As we explore this concept of optimizing you, the capital U is, again, the universal needs. We all need the basics in life, right? The food and the water and the sleep and all of those aspects that we need as a human being. But if we're here to orient to health and well-being and flourishing, perhaps discovering our dharma and purpose in life, we kind of touch base on this idea from Joseph Campbell and the call to adventure. As you are now exploring into health literacy, finding out what is the next thing that you'd love to learn more about in your health journey. Is it about food? Is it about fitness? Is it about pulling back and getting more rest? to fully revitalize and come back fully charged. So on this hero's journey, we touch base every month to see where we're at. So just checking in. How are you today? Let's just take a moment and take a breath. Wherever you are, I invite you to sit tall or stand tall. Relax into your body, and if you can, gently close your eyes. Sitting tall with a tall spine, feeling the head reaching skyward, we align and show up in this regal pose with full attention and allowing us to fall and release any tension in the body, in the mind. And let's just be here and take 2 more breaths. And as you exhale, I invite you to release consciously anything that is no longer serving you, that you don't need right this second. And on the next inhalation, I invite you to just let the breath in, no effort, just receive. And 1 more long exhalation at your own pace when you're ready. Fully express that exhalation and let go. And when you're ready to inhale, just receive. And then when you're ready, I invite you to gently open your eyes. Come back in full presence to receive the gifts of the exchange of information, inspiration. And now check in with yourself. What is your vision for this year in your health and well-being journey? Perhaps consider your top 3 goals. What comes to mind first? Just jot those down. When we can get present and create that space, we can listen to those deeper desires, those deeper motivators. So just checking in where you're at and jotting those down. So grab a pen, grab a pencil. We're going to have a lot to share with you. And please, let's join in the chat. I would love to know who is joining us here. Who's joining us from where? Is this your first time? And if you want to share some of your health goals, please be sure to share that in the chat at any time. So you can just put that in there. And let's go ahead and progress into the foundation of OptimizeU. We touch base on it every time we meet. And for those that are new, thank you for joining in. We love our newbies. We focus on this approach from lifestyle medicine. And lifestyle medicine is this emerging field, one of the fastest subspecialties in the medical field, which is gathering the next generations of physicians, nurses, healthcare practitioners, coaches interested in looking at the root cause of disease and educating, inspiring, and building communities around the world that address the main primary areas to sustain personal health and well-being. Welcome, welcome everyone. Thanks for posting in the chat. Now, the 6 areas of lifestyle medicine we always cover are the nutrition, and that will be our focus for today. Of course, movement and exercise will be our focus next month. Sleep, we touched base last month. And then toxins. What toxins and what sources of toxins are we exposed to, are we aware of, that are entering our bodies and our minds and our spiritual exploration of self? Then we'll look at stress management and then healthy relationships. Oh, yes. Can I get a yes for that in the post-pandemic or in the current world of where we're at? We all need community. So touching base with these 6 pillars of health, what are your current practices in each of these main domains? Perfect. Thanks so much for joining in the chat. I love to see those. People are saying they're focusing on their weight management. They're focusing on being flexible. I love it. Thank you. And then thinking about what are your ideal goals? Without goals, where are we headed? So we're always touching in to where are we now? And then where are my ideal goals? Where do I want to be in 3 months or in 1 year? The wellness vision exercise can help us orient and allow ourselves to be pulled by that vision of our ideal self, our healthiest, our most vibrant, radiant aspect of ourselves. So I encourage you to jot a few notes down. And remember, we're always evolving. Be open to the change and new ways of seeing ourselves as we are and as the goals which are pulling us into the future. All right. One last thing we're going to share. Now, we always love to share and encourage folks to visit their libraries and get your books for their summer reading programs. So we're going to look at 3 books this month related to our topic. And the first one is The Longevity Paradox. The Longevity Paradox by Stephen Gundry is an interesting look at how to die at a ripe old age. So just like, death and taxes, we just can't get away from either of those, right? So how do we address it from the positive aspect? How do we show up with full energy, vigor, and enthusiasm? In this book, some of the main concepts are looking at genes, the idea of what we're born with, and how we can look at our environment and our food and everything we put into our mind and body as a way to express our genes. Our genes are not our destiny. We have so much capability to thrive in what we do and put into our body. So looking at genes versus microbiome, also looking at blue zones in different areas where there are people who live 100 years old. Who wants to be 100 years old? Put in the chat. I know I'm going to be to 102 years old if I can avoid any accidents. That's my vision. Healthy, 102 years old. So chronic cardio. We always think fitness is great, but the vice of deficiency is equally bad as the vice of excess. So let's get to know our bodies and understand just that right size of moving the body and checking out the concepts of perhaps sometimes chronic cardio can be chronic stress. All right, I love it. Healthy 102. I love it, my friend. Thanks for being here. And the last idea is gut glymph. One of my favorite new topics in science right now, you guys, is glymphatic system. Understanding that our brains also need to detox at night. And by not eating a big meal at night, we can really help our bodies to detoxify so we wake up ready and fully charged the next day. All right, if any of those piqued your interest, grab that book, jot it down. Next, let's look briefly at Brain Maker. Okay, we're talking about food, but David Perlmutter talks about Brain Maker as it's corresponded to our food. Some of the big ideas he talks about is your second brain, the gut. But a lot of research now is saying that, in fact, our gut may be our primary brain. Have you heard of that? Are you inspired by that idea? Let's approach this with an open mind and see what we can learn in this book. And he talks about, your immune system, where that comes from. And did you know, if we want to be healthy, 70 to 80% of our immune system is in our gut. In our gut, folks. So what are you putting into your gut? That's going to help us be healthy and happy. And that diet plays a primary role in so many of our functions, including the mechanisms of feeding the information back to our brain through the vagus nerve, right? Now, the top 2 things to avoid he's going to talk about are to avoid manufactured fructose and gluten. Now, again, these are just his ideas, his research. You share and you do and you be you, right? So if this called to you, I encourage you to check out the book, order it online, or check out your local library. And Brooke can probably tell us which ones are here in the San Antonio Library. And the last one for today, you guys, is integrative nutrition. I love anything integrative. You know me, I'm all about oneness. So Joshua Rosenthal shares in his book about all these ideas, not only about health, but the startling health stats. If you haven't heard about all of the ways in which our lifestyles are leading to a growing pandemic of chronic diseases, I encourage you to just do some research or to dive into this book as he goes through some of the stats in how poor our nation is doing as a whole and how this is being exported around the world through the many types of lifestyles that we are living here in a Western-based lifestyle, like not getting enough sleep, not moving enough, eating a lot of manufactured, highly processed foods, and so on and so on and so on. So if you want to learn about that, to be more educated, right? To have a health literacy, which is really super important if we are oriented to thrive. Now, in this book, he goes through the 12 steps in his view of the integrative nutrition plan. And guess what, folks? It's not just about food. So touching base on what lifestyle medicine talked about, it's about all of the pillars, how everything is connected and integrated and works seamlessly together. And the number one factor is us, the you, right? What is universal? How are we addressing our basic needs, the basic steps? And then how are we approaching it in our unique needs? Are we training for a triathlon? Are we an expectant mom? You know, which aspect of life are we in, and how are our bodies and minds demanding that we fuel it? So which food pyramid are you subscribing to? Do you know there are different food pyramids? Which one are you applying? And how often are you updating that with new knowledge, new insights, and new inspirations on how to rock it in your personal self-care with food, as well as with rest and sleep, water, and all the basic aspects of lifestyle medicine. And he calls the primary food all of the integrative aspects to our life, including the food, the water, and healthy relationships. So you guys, super quick overview of just 3 books, and I can go on and on and on. Now, if you registered online and you received the email from book, you also got the 6-page PDF summaries of these 3 books. If you did not get this, or if you're listening to the recording and you would like to get copies of it, I will type in the chat. You can send me an email to mgruskin@wellcoach.com, and I would be happy to send that to you so that we don't ask Brooke to do one more thing, right? All right, my friends, so that does it for this overview of the 3 books. We'd love for you to visit your library, have some fun books to explore during the summer months. And so with that, I would love for you to just take down a couple of notes. What inspired you the most? And what questions came up for you? Now, as we move on, it gives me great pleasure to now introduce our guest speaker for this month, Charmin Aschenbrenner, a registered dietitian with the Lifestyle Medicine Institute. So I will go ahead and stop my share, and then we'll go ahead and have Charmin come on up, and we can start your share, and go ahead and take over when you are all set. Here we go. All right, Charmin, thank you for being here again with us. And when you're ready, feel free. And if anyone has a question, please type it into the chat and we'll review those as we go and address them right at the end.
Sorry, I'm just getting here, making sure you see my screen.
It looks good.
You see it?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to, okay, do you see the full screen now?
Full screen, yes.
All right, wonderful. Nice to see everyone today. Well, actually not see you, but see all your names there. Today, my presentation is going to be exactly what Maggie was talking about, food as medicine. I'm going to be specifically talking about and introducing you all to the idea of a whole food plant-based diet. So the agenda for today and the overview for my presentation is going to be a deep dive into the exact definition of what a whole food plant-based diet is, what are the benefits of plant-based eating, plant-based diet myth busting. So we're going to talk about some thoughts that you guys might be having or you've heard before. And then in the last portion of my presentation today, I'm going to talk about score your plant-based plate. So what are some things you can actually do to increase the plants in your diet? And we're going to go through specific categories. And so if you have a piece of paper in front of you and you can take some notes on, we're going to actually score your plant-based plate. So moving forward, okay, a plant-based diet, what is it? It is a diet that maximizes the intake of whole plant foods and minimizes the intake of processed and animal-derived foods. I like to highlight those words maximize and minimize because it isn't a diet of omission. It doesn't have to be. It's just it's saying you're maximizing the intake of whole plant foods. It's based on foods as grown, so vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, chickpeas, split peas, lentils, mushrooms, herbs, and spices, and small amounts of seeds and nuts are maximized. Meat, including chicken and fish, dairy products, eggs, and highly refined foods like bleached flour, refined sugars, and oils are minimized. That is the definition from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and this is the dietary pattern that they recommend. Which is quite a far cry from what we see here in America, and this is what we call the SAD diet, Standard American Diet, which is very sad. Only about 6% of our diet includes whole plant foods, and 6% is what we consider to be processed plant foods. So French fries, canned tomatoes, ketchup, those would be things like that, would be processed plant foods. We get about 185 pounds of added sugar each year in our diet. The typical American is getting over 3,000 milligrams of added salt a day. 9 out of 10 Americans don't eat 2.5 servings of vegetables a day, so we're not getting the vegetables we need. And 3 out of 4 Americans don't eat a single serving of fruit per day. So we've got some work to do. This is a slide of the eating continuum, and it represents how food choices affect our health. So what we see on the left side of the screen here is that a diet high in meat, dairy, eggs, processed food, alcohol, and sugar-sweetened beverages results in the worst health outcomes. And what we see on the right-hand side of the screen is that vegetables, fruit diets, whole grains, water, and nuts in moderation. On the far end, we see as you go down the spectrum, we see better health outcomes. This continuum is based on research from around the world, looking into blue zone areas and cultures where people consume, mostly plant-based foods versus cultures that are more centered around meat, dairy, eggs, processed food, alcohol, and sugar-sweetened beverages. So what we want to do, and I hope to inspire you today, is just kind of wherever you're at, just to move you down this continuum and get you more towards the better health outcomes. All of you might not, I recognize, want to be 100% whole food plant-based and live all the way at this right-hand side of the spectrum, but we can definitely just improve our health by including more plants and getting more plant-centered. Health benefits of a whole food plant-based diet. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about that. It's pretty extensive. I could spend probably a whole hour just on this topic alone, so I'm going to be brief to get through the content, but know that if you want to dig deeper, there is tons of research around the benefits of plant-based eating on our health. And number one, we have to discuss heart disease, the leading cause of death in America. Since 1985, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn has been conducting research on a whole food plant-based diet, and he has proven that you can reverse atherosclerosis. These slides, pictures show that with a whole food plant-based diet, this was after 4 years of eating a healthy, nutrient-dense whole food plant-based diet, and you see the artery was actually opened up. This was in his research project in the 90s. So we've known since the mid-90s that we can reverse heart disease with diet alone. Improves blood circulation, lowers cholesterol, also lowers blood pressure when we eat a more plant-centered diet. There's also research goes back to the early 80s too, around study by T. Colin Campbell, and also Dean Ornish started studying heart disease and did many studies showing lifestyle interventions versus typical medical interventions, and lifestyle interventions showed to be more helpful at reversing cardiovascular disease. Type 2 diabetes, this is a major cause of death in America, and I went through college in the 90s, and nobody ever told me that we could reverse diabetes, but we actually have studies to show that reversal is possible if it's caught early enough. So I don't want to preach that we can reverse a late stage, someone who's had diabetes or type 1 diabetes. This is type 2. You can reverse it. You can improve the function of the beta cell, which is the cell that produces insulin when you're eating a whole food plant-based diet. So you improve blood sugar control. That's really due to the fiber content. Improve insulin sensitivity because of the lower fat in the diet. You definitely reduce the fat in the fat cells, which help the insulin cell receptor the sugar better, and again, improve beta cell function. And Dr. Neil Barnard is leading this charge in the study against diabetes with whole food plant-based eating. Cancer, lots of research around cancer and diet, and we know even the American Cancer Society recommends a whole food plant-based diet, recommends a plant predominant diet. They show slow progression of cancer, and they also show lower rates of cancer in populations where people eat more plant predominant. Kidney health, lots of good research around kidney health. This is becoming the leading nutritional recommendations around chronic kidney disease. Plant-based nutrition has been proven to prevent and even slow the progression of chronic kidney disease. So that is very exciting. Brain health, we have Dr. Shirazi and his wife both have been leading the charge in researching Alzheimer's and our brain health, and how plant-based eating, plant predominant eating, whole food plant-based diets, they all have just such a powerful impact on brain health. And also improving our mood is very effective. The diet is very effective at improving our mood. We see that people who eat better feel better, have less anxiety, have less depression. There's been lots of research around that as well, and lower stroke risk. Weight loss. A lot of people who are wanting to improve their health, weight loss is something that we would like to accomplish. And good news, a whole food plant-based diet is very effective at weight loss. There's been study after study that has been done trying to look at all the different diets and which one is better than the other at losing weight and keeping it off. And a whole food plant-based diet has been shown that it is definitely a healthy choice if your goal is weight loss. Chronic inflammation, we have realized that chronic inflammation is the center of most all diseases. And so when you have a diet low in inflammatory foods and rich in nutrient-dense foods, we see reduced inflammation and lower risk of many other chronic diseases. So that's exciting. Gut health and immune function. So Maggie mentioned how our gut has such an important role in our health, and all those books that she showed us discuss the microbiome. This is a lots of research going into looking at the microbiome and how all these little bugs that live inside of us affect not just digestion, but our immune health, our brain health. When you increase your fiber content, that fiber is what's called prebiotic food that helps feed that microbiome, increases the diversity of bugs in our gut. So when we have a nice variety of different bugs that live inside of us, that is like a really strong army, and that is going to help us against infections. So, and also help us digest our food, so we get better at digesting food. So lots of exciting things with gut health and immune function. So as you can see, the decisions that we make by the food that we put in our mouth, we're either fighting disease or we're feeding it. So I am wanting to show you how to fight disease instead of feed disease. So let's move on to plant-based myths busting. So I'm sure some of you out there have some questions around plant-based diets, and one of them, I'm sure one of you has the idea that it's hard to get enough protein on a plant-based diet. And nothing could be further from the truth. It's not hard at all to get enough protein. All plants contain protein. Most Americans eat too much protein, which can cause heart disease, cancer, kidney function, poor kidney function, osteoporosis, and overweight and obesity. Our needs are actually very easily met at 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And all plants contain all essential amino acids. So it's a very inaccurate statement to say we can't get enough protein. The fact is, consuming a variety of delicious plant-based foods will easily meet your daily protein needs. So this is just an example of a diet, and maybe an oatmeal with berries and some soy milk. you would get 17 grams of protein. Split pea soup with some whole grain bread and hummus and a garden salad, 21 grams of protein. Apple and peanut butter for a snack, and Mexican black bean brown rice and corn tortillas with avocado and salsa. All sounds delicious. And so that would meet 60 grams of protein for the day, which would meet most people's needs for the day. As you can see, if you say, well, there's more protein in steak or salmon and chicken, you're absolutely right. There is more protein per calorie generally, but there's no fiber, and so that is really, protein is not a nutrient of concern, fiber is. So when you eat beans, which is a great source of protein, you're getting not only protein, but you're getting fiber as well. And there's plenty of protein in those beans. So next myth would be you need to eat dairy to get strong bones. And again, plant foods are excellent sources of calcium, and calcium is one of the most abundant elements on the planet. So body needs sufficient vitamin D to absorb the calcium. So vitamin D is often more the nutrient of concern than calcium. Osteoporosis is not a calcium deficiency disease. Strong skeletal system depends on preventing the loss of calcium from your body. Excess intake of tobacco, alcohol, animal protein, phosphorus, sodium, and lack of exercise and lack of sun enhance the calcium excretion from our body. So those are more of the concerns with our bones than actually the intake of calcium itself. And cultures with highest intakes of milk have the highest rates of osteoporosis and fractures. Dairy is not included as a recommended food group for optimal health in the Canadian food pyramid. Just an interesting fact. So calcium and other minerals are found in soil and are abundant in the roots of plants. The calcium in cow's milk originates in those calcium-rich plants that the cows eat. So you're truly just eating the middleman. So you can instead just go straight to the plant source. As you can see, lots of calcium and other plant-based sources of food like sesame seeds, tofu, soybeans, white beans, almonds, collard greens, dairy milk. Dairy milk has 400 milligrams per cup, where you can get that easily in other foods as well. So consuming a variety of delicious plant-based foods, you will easily meet your daily calcium needs and set you up for strong, healthy skeletal systems. Okay, and then I'm sure a couple of you have thought this as well. Carbs make me fat. Not all carbs are created equal. So carbohydrates from vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans and legumes provide energy, essential nutrients, and are health-promoting carbohydrate choices. And carbohydrates are our body's preferred source of energy and the brain's only source of energy. And carbohydrates from whole plant foods are consistently protective against disease. So consuming a variety of delicious complex carbohydrates from whole plant food sources is associated with a healthy body weight. So we want to eat those nice, whole, intact plants and avoid those simple carbohydrates. These are the carbohydrates, those simple carbohydrates we want to avoid in our diet. Okay, let's move on to how you're doing now, and we can start going through food groups and seeing how your current diet is and how you could improve. So if you have that piece of paper in front of you, if you answer yes to the question, please put a 1 down on your paper. And if you say no, that's 0. And so then at the end, you can just add up how many points you have. Okay, do you eat at least 2.5 cups of vegetables per day? And ideally, we're getting broccoli, lots of different kinds. So a variety of different vegetables is always best. So 2.5 cups of vegetables. Are you getting that much a day? Are you getting 2 servings of fruit per day? So that would be 1/2 cup of berries or a whole piece of fruit. So do you get 2 pieces of fruit per day? And what we are looking for is unprocessed. These green stars represent what is the best source. So unprocessed fresh fruits and vegetables are at the most ideal form, as well as minimally processed would be frozen plain fruits and vegetables. So sometimes the frozen options can be just as nutritious as the fresh. sometimes our grocery stores, those vegetables travel a long ways and are picked many days ago and maybe ripened in the trucks on the way to the grocery store. Whereas frozen options are picked at the peak of freshness and flash frozen right away. So sometimes a better option might be, depending on what fruit and vegetable and what's in season, those frozen options. So never hesitate to buy. I always like to have lots of frozen fruit and vegetables in my freezer for easy, fast meals. Moderately processed would be unsweetened juices or canned fruits and vegetables. Those often have either added sugar or salt to them. So we want to, that's got a yellow star showing us that we want to be careful with intake of those items. And then try to avoid the highly processed, sweetened fruit-based desserts and deep fried vegetables. Those aren't what we want to include in those 2.5 cups of vegetables a day. We want, those to be avoided as much as possible. Okay, so do you eat 2 servings of whole grains per day? So whole grains, there's a wide variety of whole grains. So if you are someone who's avoiding gluten for any reason, then there's lots of options to brown rice and oats and quinoa, barley. All these are gluten-free options. Whereas like wheat berries, like farro and freekeh is a type of wheat that's picked green and a unique whole grain, and then wild rice and bulgur, all great options. Whole grain, intact grains are really the preferred source of intake here. So what that looks like is unprocessed, intact whole grains or even sprouted grains. And this is an area of the grocery store a lot of people don't have a lot of familiarity with. So usually you can go to the bulk bins and find, or a more natural grocery store usually has lots of options around whole grains. Most people I speak with are generally familiar with oats and maybe rice, and I think quinoa has become quite popular as well. But the variety of whole grains out there in the grocery stores is endless. There's so many options and so many fun things to try. So I highly recommend trying those intact grains. Minimally processed would be things like grains that have been only cut, rolled, or shredded. Nothing's been removed from that grain. It's just been slightly altered to change the texture or quicken the cooking process. So like a rolled oat or a steel cut oat would all be great options as well. But options like flaked or puffed whole grains or whole grain floured products like breads often have things added to them like sugars and salts and fats. And so those kinds of products, I would say to moderately intake or minimize your intake of those foods. Try to focus more on those whole plant foods, whole intact grains. And then try to remove highly processed refined grains, whole grain snack crackers and bars. Those often, again, have much added sugar, salt, and fat in them. What about beans? Are you getting a half a cup of beans per day? Beans are magical foods and really should be included in our diets every day. Dr. Greger from the Nutrition Facts organization, he wrote the book, How Not to Diet, How Not to Diet. And he recommends 3 servings a day, a half a cup of the servings. So trying to get in 1.5 cups of beans a day is a great effort in improving your health. Lots of fiber and lots of protein. Good studies around lowering your risk of diabetes by a tremendous amount. So getting in beans every day. And if you are somebody who has diabetes and are trying to really control those blood sugars, getting beans in at breakfast is a real strong tip that I would recommend. Finding a way to get those beans at breakfast helps lower your blood sugar throughout the day. So that is great. So select unprocessed or minimally processed choices. So going to the grocery store, finding beans that are in their whole form. Many of the beans you have to soak before you cook them. Unless you have a pressure cooker, which those Instant Pots are pretty handy for that. You can cook them without soaking. And lentils are beans you don't have to cook. You have to cook, but you don't have to soak. So those are awesome ideas. Those are great options for beans. And then canned beans are also a great option, but you want to make sure to get the low salt or no salt added canned beans. Once you start cooking your beans from scratch. If you don't already, you realize how inexpensive it is to do that. So you can control the flavor, and you can control the amount of sodium that's in them. So optimally, if you have the time and start to work that into your weekly routine, soaking and cooking beans is a great thing to do. And also minimally processed foods like tofu and tempeh, and bean pastas like red lentil pasta. There's garbanzo bean pastas. So those are pretty minimally processed and would be included in that category of good things to include in your diet. And then moderately processed veggie meats, like products like maybe Beyond Meat, or any kind of meat replacement option. These options often maybe have some bean option in them, but they often have a lot of fat included as well, trying to make them taste and look a lot more like meat. So these are things that I would say minimize the intake. Maybe they're better options than their meat alternatives, but maybe not a healthy option to eat every day, but maybe have something that you would just have every once in a while. And also very high in sodium as well. And then highly processed, I would highly recommend avoiding things like deep fried tofu, bonito chips. Even though they do have beans in them, they do have a lot of other negative food options, nutrients like high sodium and high fat that you would want to avoid. Okay, next, do I eat 1 ounce of nuts and seeds per day? So ideally, we're getting a variety. They all have a lot of nutrients in them that are healthy for us. So omega-3s, zinc is another one that they're high in. So we really want to include nuts and seeds in our diet every single day. Flaxseed, a tablespoon of ground flaxseed, a tablespoon of chia, a tablespoon of hemp seeds. All these, if you could incorporate just those 3 every day in a variety of different foods, would be great. Or a nut butter is an option if you're having something like an almond butter or a peanut butter that is unsalted and doesn't have any added oils in them. So recommend those natural nut butter spreads is an option as well. They are more nutrient dense, more calorie dense. And so if you're wanting to lose weight, I would say just, limiting it to 1 ounce a day would be good, but not avoiding it altogether. They're very nutrient dense and good for us. So again, we want to be eating those unprocessed varieties or minimally processed, meaning like dry roasted nuts or seeds that don't have any oil added, or natural nut butters or seed butters are all good options as well. Moderately processed would be things maybe like gifs and nuts and seeds with oils and salts added. We want to minimize the intake of things like that. And then highly processed options where you have even more processing, where we have sweet coatings, added sugars and salts and oils. We want to avoid those options. Okay, so do you limit or avoid unhealthy fats in your diet? Are you careful with things like butter and other animal fats, coconut oil, deep fried foods? The American Heart Association recommends that we get less than 13 grams of saturated fat per day for a healthy heart. So, and those polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats like nuts and seeds and olive oil and avocados are all healthier options and don't result in that same plaque building that those saturated fats can contribute to. So when we look at saturated fat, so if you're wondering, well, where is saturated fat found? This is kind of common food items, like 22 grams of fat in a meat lover's pizza and 2 slices. So you're way over budget if you just have 2 slices of pizza. A double cheeseburger, 18 grams, and that's just the cheeseburger. That's not including the French fries or any other, or the ice cream cone or anything else you have in addition to that. So just in one food item a day, you have 18 grams of saturated fat. Taco with beef and cheese, 16 grams of fat. Whole milk is 7 grams. Cheddar cheese, just an ounce, is 5 grams. Coconut oil is 7 grams of saturated fat. So although a lot of people may think coconut oil, I think the coconut industry did a great job at making people believe that coconut oil is healthy. It is awesome for our skin. It's great with flavor, so I don't necessarily recommend you avoid coconut oil altogether. But because I love doing food like coconut milk in a nice Thai dish or something, but using it as a supplement in the efforts of health, I would highly recommend avoiding that. It does definitely contribute to higher saturated fat in your diet, and then which contributes to higher LDL cholesterol, which is a risk factor for heart disease. So as you can see, as this gets greener, there's very low amounts of saturated fat in a plant-based diet, so in plant foods. Do you limit or avoid processed and red meats to 2 or fewer 3-ounce servings per month? So 3 ounces equal 1 serving. So a serving of red meat looks like about the size of a deck of cards. So although this isn't a very popular slide, most people consume more than that. But we do know that these do contribute to higher cancer risk, higher heart disease risk, which are leading causes of death in our country. So if we can just either minimize these foods in our diet, or if you want to avoid them altogether, that's awesome as well. Do you limit added salt or sodium in your diet? So are you limiting things like crackers and pizzas and canned foods and cheese? And are you looking at the sodium content of foods? We want to get less than 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day. That sodium intake is very much attached to our blood pressure. So people who eat a diet high in sodium, they often struggle with higher blood pressure. So it's remarkable how quickly I see, especially in like the PIVIO program or any lifestyle intervention program, when we start to change our diet and lower our sodium in our diet, blood pressure really drops down. So, which is into more healthy range. So our diet really has a big impact on our blood circulation. So watching our sodium intake is very important. All right, so do you limit added sugar in your diet? Are you careful with what sugar you're consuming? The World Health Organization recommends we have less than 24 grams of sugar for a woman, 36 grams of sugar for a man. They get a little bit more, just their larger body type, I'm sure. But 4 grams equal 1 teaspoon of sugar, just to give you a relative amount of how much sugar that is. So you do, I mean, it is not saying you have to avoid sugar altogether. I do recommend getting your sugar from mostly, if not all, natural sources, like from fruit and things like dates and other natural sources like that. So being mindful of what you're putting in your mouth and how much sugar you're eating. Sugar is very inflammatory, as well as salt and excess fat in our diet. So avoiding things like sugar sweetened beverages and lots of excess candy and sweets like that is, again, very, very healthy. All right, so now let's see, ranking our score. So if you guys can add up the score that you have in front of you and see where you're at right now. It would be fun if you feel like brave enough to put it in the chat box and see where, and let us know how everyone's doing. The odds are in your favor if you're an 8 or a 9. I want to give you some kudos there. If there's some 8 or 9s out there, you are following a plant-based diet. You're doing awesome. Number 6 or 7, you're doing great. How could you add another point or two? So where could you maybe start increasing your intake of what food group? I bet if I had to guess, it's probably in the bean category. A lot of people aren't getting enough beans. Maybe in the vegetable category, a lot of people aren't getting enough vegetables. So how could you start incorporating those into your diet? A good start, a 4 or 5, but you can do better to improve your health. So keep working on that. And then if you're a 0 to 3, time to turn your life around and improve your diet. I'm going to tell you about the PIVIO program as one resource that you could go to. And we are going, so I'm going to introduce that to you now. So PIVIO, you've heard me say that a few times in this presentation. PIVIO is the program I represent. PIVIO is an intensive lifestyle intervention program that addresses the root cause of chronic disease. PIVIO leverages education, behavior change techniques, and social support to help you learn and set healthy habits to carry you for the rest of your life. It is an important commitment that prioritizes your health and well-being. So it actually represents all 6 pillars. I'm going to try to play a short 3-minute video here and see. I hope you guys get the sound and everything. Please let me know if you don't hear anything.
Charmin, sorry, it's Maggie. Just a quick warning, we've got like 2 minutes left.
Okay. Well, I will just, maybe I can't play this video. I'll just wrap up with, let me see here. How do I, with just the last slide here. It is a 12-week program that just represents, like I said, all the aspects of that of lifestyle medicine. So we progress through the program and talk about all aspects of health. They're facilitated group sessions over 12 weeks. They're virtual, in-person groups, both group sessions led by PIVIO trained facilitators, online PIVIO portal, guide you through entering your biometrics, setting and tracking goals, and reviewing progress. So that is really it. I think that the PIVIO program will be offered, and Maggie could speak more to that later in the year. But thank you for your time, and I'm here if there's any questions.